Welcome to the OC. I'm Phil. It's my co-host Corey, and tonight we're talking about something fantastic, crazy, almost unbelievable: reincarnation. Not carnation.
I thought we were looking retardation. Oof, boy, it's going to be an
I'm
awkward.
there. I've been suffering for many, many years. This was the reason I picked this topic was because I watched this kind of interesting thing online about this boy who, knew too much at 2 years old about his past lives and things like that. So, it was really interesting. And then what I realized when we started to look into this, there's just really not that much information out there.
It's a lot of repetitive information.
Yeah.
Do you want to summarize for the people so we don't waste their time?
Yeah. So we don't want to waste anyone's time, but if you want to watch and just listen to us, that's fine too. But yeah, reincarnation. I mean, if you haven't heard of it, it's the idea that you die and you were brought back into a whole new body, less your memories and everything else.
Or were you? Yeah.
So, but that's it. And most people have heard of reincarnation as I have. So to kind of give you a little bit of you've obviously read about it too, but
fair bit.
It originated like in India, like with the Hinduism and Buddhism. And
so that's the one we're traditionally familiar with. So when you look at this from that perspective, like the Western idea of reincarnation is traditionally it's based off the whole Eastern thing, but as everything, we've stolen it, right? But it actually goes much further back to when you go back to the ancient Greeks.
So, I thought that was really neat, like Pythagoras. Did you read about, like
Pythagoras, Aristotle,
Socrates? These guys were all like, hey, man, we'll be reborn again. And they were really confident about it. And I thought that was interesting. And I don't know which came first, whether it be the Greeks or be the, Eastern Asia, type thing. But
it's hard. So when you look into this, you see the idea of, it's called the Orphic mystery religion. This is the idea that the pre-existent soul survives bodily death and is later reincarnated in a human or mammalian body, eventually receiving release from the cycle and birth or death and regaining its former pure state. And this was Plato believed very much in this. The idea that a mortal soul that would continue transcending death.
Yeah, and that went through like Aristotle.
Yep.
Plato, Socrates, all that good stuff. I thought that was interesting because I really didn't know that. And do you know who didn't have reincarnation in their Bible? Or the Christians?
What?
I know. I'm like, wait a minute. And that kind of surprised me because I thought, wait a minute, don't they talk about Jesus coming back?
Didn't the Big J come back? But
that's a misnomer because Big J, he came back, but that's more that he like a rebirth. Because he came back as the same dude. So which is not
the same exactly. A resurrection,
which is not the same
as opposed to reincarnation. So
that's right.
Resurrection is Phil's
and I
dad.
got that confused. I was like, hey, wait a minute.
I play D&D. We do resurrection all the time. You don't do reincarnate because it's a random roll and you wind up.
God damn it.
Resme, exactly. You play WoW. Resme, jerk. Resme. Right. Whereas traditionally in tabletop role playing for games, reincarnation is usually you're gonna come back to something random. Oh damn, you came back as a cat.
I was a dwarf. Now I'm a rabbit.
Exactly right. Like great.
Oh no.
Right. This is going to be role-playing challenges.
This is terrible. Yeah.
And the reason why in Christianity, why there is no concept of reincarnation is because
you go to heaven or hell.
Exactly right. It's one and done. You go off. You get one chance at doing this right. You screw up. It's not like damn. Well,
guess
come back again.
Corey's back again.
Back again, right? It's the idea that now it still harbors the idea of the eternal soul, right? That our soul and all concepts of this reincarnation, it's all the idea that the soul extends past.
Yeah.
Right.
Our death. Yeah. Yep. I find religion really fascinating. I mean, even though I'm not a religious individual, I find it all religions, I think, are, I find them interesting in how they do things, even though a lot of it's the same. But like when we look at like Hinduism, Sikhism, all of these different religions.
Well, do you want to talk about a couple of those, like what each of them?
Yeah,
each of them sort of touch on.
Well, I didn't really get into, I mean, if maybe you know a little bit more than I do, but like Buddhism, that's one of the reasons why we don't, they don't kill things. They don't want, because you could come back as a butterfly or
right.
Or a rat. Survive, you just killed your mother.
You may want to be a little careful about what you're eating. Now, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, well, that's why they're
big on the cows, right? Hinduism is cows.
And they're vegetarians. Yeah, like most of India they're vegetarians.
Yeah, and the reason would you like to know why that is?
I would love to know why.
There's a thing called a hierarchy of beings.
Oh,
or hierarchy.
The cow is like their sacred animal.
So this, one of the concepts they talk about is the 5 classes of beings. You've got your one sensed, which are trees, like plants.
Okay, sure.
Your 2 cents, which are worms, and apparently shells, which seem really odd.
Like
shells
mollusks.
Yes, but I think of shells as being like not the mollusk. That's what's in the.
But the shell.
Anyway, that's like me saying my hair is one of the beings, which is also.
What do you mean like
moving.
coral? I don't know.
Possibly
because it's alive. It's a living.
It is alive.
organism.
It's more than a plant, right? But less than than apparently a 3 sensed being, which is an ant or bugs.
Okay.
4 sensed, apparently spiders and bees. So it's interesting how they draw the parallel. And would you like to guess where what the 5 cents are?
Mammals, reptilians,
a
birds.
whole bunch of us. So basically everything above the spider and bee level is, so you're okay.
And I figured this out.
Somebody spent time. Somebody spent time doing this, right?
Yeah, they had a lot of time on their hands, I guess. Yeah. Okay. But okay, go back to the cow. Because why is it sacred to them?
I have no idea. I'm not sure why they now.
Dude, you just totally like took me on a ride and
I don't know why now that's sacred to the Hindus. Now I suspect it has more to do with the fact that a cow is way more useful. Like from a practice, so you look at a lot
milk,
of the race, right?
Like,
if you look at from a practical perspective, a cow is more useful over its lifespan as a live cow than a dead steak.
True.
Right.
True. And I suppose too, they don't have the land mass, right? If you think about,
and the water,
the water especially, but I mean, like agriculture is a fucking terrible thing on this planet. Like, just to have steak, it takes up so many resources. And not only resource, but fuels and fossil,
and the
farming.
Production of methane, right?
Oh my God.
Apparently cow farts is like double-digit percentage contribution to global warming.
Well, you got millions of cows.
Yeah.
Millions. And I mean, it's, we grew up and had cows and all sorts of stuff.
I never had that. So I was more bush country and you were more not so country. You were not more, you did become bush country, but you actually had farm animals.
We had farm. So, but I mean, they were there to eat, which is really sad. So sad. I love the animals.
I know. And one of them could have been somebody coming back to say hello to you, right?
Well, and that's it. And then, but the very Western sort of idea. So that's more of coming back as a flower or as a bird, or that's Eastern, right? So Asian, Eastern. Yeah, but when you start to get into more Western, we become more selfish and we're more like, oh yeah, we're being reborn into our own body, like another human being. Right?
Correct. There's no sliding back, right? So
that's right.
The idea that you can backslide,
right?
Reincarnation. It's like, no, you're coming back and maybe you're going to come back.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be in a better state than you were previously, but you're not coming back as an ant.
Well, yeah. And I think when you get into Hinduism and things like that, or any of the, it's more of a all-inclusive sort of idea.
Like a complex calculus, my friend, about figuring out how.
Yeah, but we're part of the whole. I think what it means too is that we're part of a whole. right? The earth,
they talk about
creatures.
the oneness. So ultimately,
sure.
right? That oneness that we came from the oneness. Like, let's assume you're fresh off the boat. You haven't been reincarnated yet. You came from nothing. You came from the oneness that is the universe.
It's the oneness.
The oneness. The
oneness of the universe.
Yeah, yes, that is such a terrible whatever you're doing. I'm not sure what accent that's supposed to be.
Listen here. Just in Savannah. Okay.
Freud?
Is that Freud? Yeah, Freud.
God.
I know. But yeah, so the Dalai Lama, we're going to take a left turn here to the Dalai Lama. 14 times he's been reincarnated as the Dalai Lama. That's a bit of a stretch.
Okay, so funny you mentioned that. I think under Jainism, which is another Eastern one, they say like you have
Jainism,
to go through like 400,000 iterations before you figure it out. So
400,000. So
that's what I heard. Like, I mean, I suspect that's an awful lot of bugs and plants you start off as, because I suspect once you get to the
you're getting eaten a lot.
Yeah, once you're
dying so much.
Once you've moved up the scale a bit, I suspect it starts to slow down, because average human lifespan is 80.
Yeah, I know. But that's the thing, right? Is that, you start off as grass, and then you work your way up to be a caterpillar.
I was a highwayman. Across the coach roads I did ride.
That's
sword
beautiful.
And pistol by my side.
You are quite the singer.
You've heard that song, right?
Yeah, it's a great song.
Well, but that's
Johnny
exactly,
Cash song.
Well, that's the Highwayman song. It's Johnny Cash. It's Willie Nelson. It's Waylon Jennings and
Chris Christopherson.
Which I always think of him as Whistler from Blade, which
he is.
But
he's also an amazing singer and a pretty damn good actor.
But it really hits on the concept of reincarnation and that idea that not so much a typical Western idea. It does pull more from the Eastern, that, where Johnny Cash says, I may come back as a single drop of rain, but so I shall remain. Jesus. Basically, we always keep coming back and back and back and back.
You are very cultured.
I like the song. My wife Melissa loves the song. Actually,
I'm a big Johnny Cash fan. Well, I come from that. Yeah,
but it captures what you're talking about. That concept of like in most cases, oneness. It's a person, but eventually, like when Johnny Cash gets to his part, he's talking about, I might come back as not a person.
Drop of rain.
Which again, I guess helps at 400,000. Yeah, right.
I could bite. I would love to be a flea. I would bite so many people. Just telling you now. A bed
house
bug.
Cats have it made, buddy. If you can get in a house cat, you just sit there lazy. It's great.
I would totally be one of my cats. They are treated fantastic. They're bastards. They're not even a good thing. They're not even good creatures.
So talking about this concept of progression or whatever, it's hard to talk about reincarnation without talking about
what?
Karma.
Oh, karma. Yeah.
You must have touched on this. Now,
I did touch on karma. Yeah. But, if you're a Buddhist or Hindu, like your karma is like your reincarnation is like your reboot, right? So whatever you did in your past life.
It depends on the interpretation. So some of them believe in the idea of cause and effect, that you do good things, good comes to you. You do bad things come to you. Sort of like you reap what you sow. And that concept of that, if you want to achieve that awesome state, which depending on what religion you follow, you're aiming for, you need to make sure that you're not setting yourself up to fail by being an asshole in this life and saying, you know what, I'll get it better next life.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be a total trash bag this life and next life. We'll see what happens. I'll be good. I get that, and you can't do this without looking at religion. Like this is as much as it's reincarnation. It's almost like we're talking about religions, but
because that requires the concept of the immortal soul is very much a religious concept.
Yeah, and what I found really interesting, even though Christianity doesn't promote reincarnation, it's about 25% of all Christians believe in reincarnation, which I thought was really interesting. Yeah, which like some of the studies that they were showing. Yeah,
which is fascinating when you think about the very tenets of Christianity deny the concept of reincarnation, because they're basically saying if you do bad, you're going to hell and you're going to be there. Now I'm not enough up in my doctrine to know if you can ever get out. Like I would suspect
not.
I would think, okay, so get this. You've got a loving Savior in Jesus. You think he would say, okay, you know what? Do you feel bad now about what you've done? You've suffered horribly down there. Right?
I don't think so. I think I don't know.
I believe it's like the end stop. Like you have two end states. You either you're going up to the clouds or you're going down to the ground.
Yeah, it's a little weird. Or purgatory.
And that's another fascinating concept, right? It's like, purgatory, so you haven't been judged, or we're not quite sure, or we're giving you a second chance, because the concept of purgatory has many different forms. And some people say this is how reincarnation fits in with Christianity, the concept of purgatory. That guess where purgatory is, Phil?
It's nowhere.
It's here. This is purgatory. You're going to keep staying here until you basically have damned yourself or saved yourself, right? This is the idea that, well, it's one of the ideas out there that where we exist now, this corporeal existence is purgatory for us, because we are here because we have not been determined to be able, we have not been judged, and we need to either damn ourselves to the state where we can be properly judged, or save ourselves and be properly escalated or elevated.
This is why I have a hard time with the religion.
Is that the only reason, Phil? It's not the Crusades or the Salem witch trials or the other stuff.
I have a lot of problems.
This is what stops you.
But I mean, it's the backwardsness of oh yes, you got to be good, and most people I think are good regardless of whether or not they are. In most cases, people tend to be good. I like to believe that.
Stoics were big fans, Phil, of believing that people do not do evil purpose. Most people do not do evil purposely.
Oh, there are some really evil people.
There are some, but most either do it out of ignorance, right, or like they do it out of ignorance. That's what they do.
Selfishness.
They are doing what they think is right,
for sure,
and they're wrong.
For sure.
It's not right.
Yeah. But then there are the odd ones that are truly fucking bad.
We have several podcasts if you're interested in finding out some of the wrong ones.
Especially the serial killer options. There are several there that are.
We've got OJ, we've got H.H. Holmes, Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes,
a couple good ones out there.
Subscribe. We would really appreciate it. We could use your help. When I look at religion and different, I like the idea of how, like, say, the Buddhists and they look at things from a whole, like you were saying, like the oneness of it all. Like we belong to, like we're part of the earth. And I think that as a Western society, we tend to think that, the earth owes us something. Yeah, right.
We're literally if you were to look at the concept of cancer and compare it to what we do to, if you look at the earth as being a person and you look at what we do to said earth.
Yeah. And what we make other people do. Like when you look at like rainforests in Brazil and down in South America being cut, well, it's because manufacturers of beef and things like that are basically the demand for North American
consumption. It's consumption.
Waste, because most of I watched a show that the study of how much food is wasted in North America, and it's staggering. So basically, like I think it was something like 35 or 40% of all food that's made. Like, it's huge. It's a huge amount of food, and like a lot of farmers, like they overproduce by like a lot, right? And a lot of that is waste. So anyway, we're a land of waste, but that's not what this is about.
No, this is not Phil's eco message, or as I like to call him, Captain Planet.
Captain Planet. No, but our planet's going to fucking hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, but Elon will fly you to Mars. Don't worry, you'll be good with and you'll be able to buy stuff with Dogecoin.
Poor Elon. Hey, I like Dogecoin. I think it's a cute little dog.
I think the Shiba Inu is the next meme currency that's taking off or something. I'm not.
Was it?
Sure.
Shiba. Yeah. Well, apparently. I don't know. All my coin is just in the shitter right now. So
it'll recover.
Oh, for sure. I'll just hold on to it.
Hold on.
What's that?
HODL. Hold on for dear life.
Hold on. Yeah. And indigenous people in North America also believed in reincarnation. Did you read about that?
I remember
the indigenous
seeing that.
tribes. Yeah.
Yeah. Because this whole the whole spirituality, right? So this is another example of the oneness. They believe they were part of existence versus.
I thought that was fantastic. I was like, oh, so you're seeing this reincarnation all over the world. This isn't just, in one particular place or what have you. So then we get into, you already talked about Socrates and all that good stuff, but, and where the 4 cycles of reincarnation. Did you read through any of that?
I touched on it, and I was actually more focused on how to break the cycle of reincarnation.
I'm trying to stop.
But this is the thing. So when you look at the
what if I don't want to?
Well, this is the idea, right? That reincarnating sucks. Like if you're still here, you know what? No matter how good your life is, no matter how good.
But where do we go if we're not here?
When you cease to exist. So this is back to our. So if we look at the concept of we emerge from oneness,
yes.
Where do we want to get back to?
We want to get back to birth.
Back to the oneness. We want to cease to exist because we've elevated ourselves, right? This is Buddhism is very much on this. Well, but it's the concept of breaking the cycle. The whole point is to break the cycle.
I guess.
We're trapped in it. That's how some people perceive it as not so much an advancement as it is a trap, that you are stuck being reincarnated. And you know what? Maybe you'll get it this life. Maybe you'll be enlightened enough to break it.
One thing that kind of confuses me is that, okay, so let's just say it is a reincarnation. How many people did we start off with? And so now how do we end up with so many people if we're just reborn into,
So if you think of the oneness as being an endless well, and that
of life,
and then that well spills gives form to a new soul, and then guess what? That new soul, when it dies, it doesn't go back to the oneness because it sucks, because we're all burdened down with our sense of self and guilt. So we go back into the blender and we come back out. There's also the concept I read about that reincarnation is not 100%. So it's you have a soul, right? Okay. That soul comes in. Think of it like a plant, growing a plant. You grow a plant from a seed, right? So you got a little baby soul, like grows into a beautiful plant, and then you take that plant and you make 5 pies from it, or you take a bunch of seeds from it. You take that thing. So if our souls reincarnation, we don't reincarnate fully. What happens is we are broken up. And all of a sudden we are now, when we die, we give that mature, heavy, fat, bloated soul of ours is harvested to make 10 little souls or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just don't see, if the whole idea of doing this until we get shit right. So then I become an amoeba in the next life.
It depends on where. So different religions have the idea of backsliding versus not, right? The idea is ultimately that you're advancing up a ladder and that you get to the top, and to get that last rung is really hard. So you might be stuck on that rung.
You get a few shots. Yeah.
That's right. You keep jumping. You're like that kid, keep jumping up. And eventually
I'm getting tired. I don't want to do this anymore, man. Yeah, no, I get that. Well, one of the people, and this was actually the story that I had originally. I thought I might as well talk about it. It's called. His name was James. Oh God, Linginger. I'm going to put that up here, but it's
that sounds like somebody who's a choker. That's like
he's
a guy
one
who
of the most.
People.
He's one of the most popular for this sort of thing.
Okay.
He made international news in the early 2000s. He was born in 1998. By the time he was about 2 years old, what happened was he had this absolute obsession with airplanes. Absolutely. Like it was, he was obsessed with all sorts of stuff.
Sorry, when was he born?
In 1998.
Okay, so if he was born after 2001, I mean, that's 9/11. I mean, a lot of people.
He was born in 1998, but he was 2 years old when this started to manifest itself.
Okay.
So he was fixated with airplanes, and not just to the point, like he was 2 years old. Now, I mean, I remember my kids at 2.
World War II. Is this the World War II? Yeah.
Yes, it is. So this guy, it's pretty interesting because he was really studied by a lot of a lot of people. So a lot of people had the opportunity to see if he was cohersed or whatever. Turned out, he knew many of the model airplanes, like, the Corsair, all the different types of fighters, the Mustangs, Spitfires. And for a small child to know that and know some of the mechanical goings on behind the scenes, that's pretty, I mean, that in itself is kind of strange. So, and he loved the World War II fighter planes, just absolutely loved them. I don't know if you know anybody who flies. I know a few people that are pilots.
Melissa has a buddy she works with who said he would fly us down to New York in a Cessna if we didn't mind spending several $1,000s in rental fees and gas. I was like, I can get a commercial airline and not die on the way.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, but they're individuals who have their own planes, they're a special breed of people. They are fascinated a lot of times with.
You would love it here. What they do in winter is when the river freezes over, they do a fly-in. So you'll have a bunch of the rich folks flying with their planes and just with the float planes and land. Oh, on the
nice.
Ice.
Yeah. Oh,
have a big ass barbecue.
I like planes. I've always liked planes. I've had no interest in being a pilot or anything like that. But you get this idea, like the people that I've known, including my wife's grandfather, even he worked on the Avro Arrow. He had a pretty rich history of flying his own, everything from experimental planes, but they're a different breed. Like they really fall in love with it. And
they used to be birds. You're saying they're reincarnated birds, aren't you?
I don't know. But when you find somebody that loves flying and loves planes, they can talk about it all day long.
You know who bothers me? The people who like jumping out of planes, the people who are loving of parachutes. I'm like, listen,
that's a young man's game. Not us.
I got my buddy Chuck. He's our age and he's doing it. And I tell you,
he doesn't like himself. Sorry,
Chuck. There are faster and easier ways of killing yourself.
Yeah. I prefer alcohol and But so anyway, back to this guy. So by the age of 2, he's collected model, like he's just absolutely fascinated. What happens though, he starts to have reoccurring nightmares. He's very young. And this is what actually kind of got them to seek out help, was that he kept talking about this airplane crash. Right. Yeah. And that he was in an airplane crash. And now a 2-year-old, you've got to remember, they're little at 2. Like they're not making up crazy lies.
Their ability to make up coherent stories. They can make up crazy stories, but their ability to make up coherent stories is
that's not great. That's exactly it. So basically, he'd wake up his parents from screaming and what have you. And this was happening almost every night. So they ended up, his mother's name was Audrey, and she said, okay, we need to see somebody about this. And then they started to do more. The counselors were starting to talk to him about things. And by the time he was 2.5, he said that, he basically came out and said that his name was James, and in a past life, and which his name was James in this life, but that he was actually a pilot in World War II. And he flew a Corsair. And so they did some study, they did some research into this, and there actually was a man by the name of James who was shot down and killed in Iwo Jima around the same time that this young fella says he was shot down. And he told them that he was shot in the engine. The engine of his plane was shot, and that's how he crashed and died, right? And that was basically, he was a member, or he was a part of a squadron. It was the USS Natoma Bay, which was an escort carrier, and he was the only plane that didn't make it back from that carrier. So I thought this was really an interesting story because, and a lot of people just couldn't get enough of this, right? It was like, it's proof. And I'm like, well, could he have been coerced, Could this
not
have
coerced, but he could have been prepped. And people read into stuff, right?
Right.
They say something, and all of a sudden, oh, you meant this. Yeah, I did mean that.
Yeah. Well, but at 2, it'd be pretty tough. I mean, it's tough to get them to like not shit their pants. So, I mean, to get them to, but
the same thing happened to James when that plane was going down. So,
right. Exactly. So over, this guy, I don't know if you read about him, Ian Stevenson. Did you read about this fella? He's written a bunch of books, and he studied like 2,500 cases of these kind of events over his. I
have one that you're talking about this. Now it's nowhere near as sexy as a World War II pilot. But,
yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So in this case, it's a kid named Hunter. Okay, which apparently is not his real name. So he was given plastic golf clubs for his 2nd birthday, and he loved them.
Oh.
Okay. After getting a glimpse of the Golf Channel on television, which again sounds fine, fair enough, he apparently lost it when he saw an infomercial or a section about this legendary golfer called Bobby Jones.
Oh.
Right. 1920s legendary golfer. Right.
Right.
Hunter says he had been Jones when he was big and wanted to be called Bobby. And apparently he was a golf prodigy. Like he was so good, he wound up getting into some sort of special program because he was that good at that age. His mom showed him 6 pictures. What is it? His deciding to test him, his mother showed him 6 photographs of 1920s golfers. Not only did he say, "That's me," about the picture of Jones, but into another photo and said, "This is Harry Garden, my friend."
Oh, and he knew.
Right now, mind you, the picture golfer's name was Harry Garden, but Harry Garden, he's 2. Let's give the kid a break here.
Yeah. Well,
okay. He recognized Jones's house from a series of pictures because he would say home. He would point to it and say home. Right. It's just absolutely insane. This kid went on, like, it was apparently dominating the child's golf circuit. So now, what does that mean? Right. This is, what are the odds that some kid who really likes an obscure legendary golfer, now mind, I guess obscure to me, I don't know if any golf fans out there, is Bobby Jones somebody you actually know of because he's from the 1920s? Like, I don't know.
I don't know anything about golf.
Yeah, I'm vaguely where you hit a ball with a stick. I'm pretty sure that's what you do, and you have to get it a touchdown, right? That's what you do.
A double touchdown.
Double touchdown, right? But it kind of obscure for the kid to go off and say, "Hey," and by the way, he's also really freaking good at golf, right?
Yeah. And
this is documented, so this has been academically published. Now there are lots of ones that have not been, and do you know who was bad for non-academically publishing reincarnations in past lives?
Who?
The sleeping prophet himself.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Remember Eddie?
Yeah.
Edgar, he would go off and he would do the
yes,
you were a unicorn in your past life sort of thing.
And thousands of people would come and see him.
Yep.
And they ate that up. The thing that happens apparently with these children, a lot of the ones that were studied, is basically by the time they're 7 or 8, or it's gone. They have no memory of it, because at 2, like, do you remember being a 2-year-old kid? I mean, most people don't, right? So that memory is kind of gone. So I thought that was really interesting.
They talk about the principle of, because you have a sense of being, like, if you were, let's say you're a person reborn, you're not reborn as a blank slate, you're reborn as kind of this, but there's a process that's still going to happen where you're going to become a person. It doesn't, you don't, just because you're born with memories of a past life, that's almost like baggage and carryover, because you're still becoming a person. Now, you may have very similar traits. You may, some people say, "Oh, at 2, he loved this and he still loves it now." Okay, fine, fair enough. But very often you are kind of a different person. You and I are both very different people than we were when we were 2.
Well,
for example,
I'm very different, but you're not very different from, you still shit your pants.
Guess what finger that is, Phil? I'm
judging by the nail. Finger? I think that's a middle finger. Well, and to give you an idea, like our oldest boy, Carson, he he is autistic, and but when he was young and very young, he could remember things. He was fascinated with the weather, fascinated. Like he knew so much about weather. Like it was strange. Like we would often, not only that, and hotel room numbers. So he could list off every hotel, because we would take the kids and go to Toronto. We would
show them hotel room numbers. This sounds like an awesome trip.
Right.
Here, we're going to look at hotel rooms.
So we would get to a hotel, and the first thing, like he would go up and down the elevator. Like it was the best thing in the world. But he would remember the hotel room numbers even years later. And we kept the list because it was pretty interesting to see if he would remember, but based on a picture of whatever trip we took, if he could remember those numbers, and he could. That's the autistic.
Sure, but the weather fascination is interesting. One of the theories I read is the idea that these talents and interests we have at an early age are reflections of past lives.
Yeah. And
right.
See, and I can't relate because I never really had. Did you have? Well, you had comic books.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. I don't think that. I don't consider that a talent.
With that.
I don't consider that a talent. I mean, I yes, you're right. I like the bright colors, I guess. I'm just thinking, okay, so
I like bright colors.
You've got some people who are naturally good at, say, guitar.
For sure.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
Now, the question is that talent, just the random genetic mix of what's going on? Or is there some linkages where, like, I've always been my big, not passion, but one of the things I've always been good at was electrical work.
Right.
I could have been Tesla in a past life.
You could. Maybe.
I haven't married a pigeon, but still.
Yeah. Or archery. Remember, you always
archery.
Maybe you were like a bozeman.
I like archery. I'm not very good at it.
Well, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It could just be that.
You say that, Phil. You say that.
Yeah,
but the not being good at it kind of sucks. Like I'm okay at it, but it's required work versus this natural talent. And we've all known people that have a natural talent for thing, right?
Just stop. So I put my hand up to stop. Let's stop. I got to give someone shit. Hold on a second.
Okay.
What's going on up there? Okay. Put them away. Now. Yeah. Fucking dog is dropping the bone, and it's like right over my mic, and it's a.
Okay, that's what it was. I was like, what is he going on about?
Yeah. So dogs and shit. Anyway, sorry. That's why I'm like, stop. Stop. And you, I'm like,
you probably ruined the second awesomeness thing.
No, it's okay. It's good. We'll just pick up from there.
You know what? It's nothing wrong. I think those things add to everything, don't
Everyone thought that it was really funny with the cat the last time.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I guess everyone who watched it. Yeah. Anyway, where were we?
We were talking about, let's see, I was pontificating.
You were pontificating.
I was talking about how I suck at archery, natural talents.
Talents. Well, well, you don't necessarily have to have a natural talent for something that,
that implies
that you
past
enjoy.
Experience. Right.
Does it?
That I think it does. I think it implies.
What if you were a fantastic archer in another life and had terrible eyes in this life?
No, I think I have an interest in archery. I might have been the guy looking at it saying, man, I sure wish I could shoot a bow. As I'm standing there in the front line with my pike going, I sure wish I was an archer. They look awesome.
I got my pike.
Exactly. Ready to be run over by a horse. I'm like, man, I sure wish I was an archer right now.
So it's funny because, well, it's not funny, but the Stevenson guy, what he talked about was that there was a correlation between birthmarks, like very distinct birthmarks, and they would represent almost like the death wound of, the deceased in a past life.
Okay.
And I thought that was really interesting.
That is cool when you hear stuff like that, right?
Except my birthmark is on my ass. I died from an ass accident.
Did you see in the papers recently or in the news recently about the kid with basically he had like the Batman cowl birthmark on his face?
No.
Yeah, he's got this weird. I'll flip it to you later and you can put it in the somewhere. And he's basically got this. It looks like somebody took and painted a Batman mask on his face. He went to Russia to get it removed.
Well, and that's got to be pretty traumatizing for someone. I have seen some of these, like, kids that are born with their face, total. And not only is it a discoloration, but a lot of times it's a raised,
it's got an odd texture to it, doesn't it? Like it's not just you got a blue mark. It's like no, it's like scale, lumpy.
Yeah. And I couldn't even imagine. I remember people going, like, there was people you'll see downtown and stuff like that, with half their face is purple, or, they have that birthmark. And I don't know, I guess you would get used to it, but
I think you have to, right? If you can't get it removed, I mean,
yeah. And yeah, so basically, yeah, I thought the birthmark thing was pretty cool. Your information's only as good as the person providing it, obviously.
Well, on the subject of the person providing it, are you familiar with the most popular method, and our buddy Eddie was good at this, of how to find out if somebody had been reborn?
Is it hypnotizing them? Yeah.
Past life regressions, right? Where they go off and they say, we're going to hypnotize you and you're going to tell me about your life before. So let's assume for a second you believe in hypnotism, which there is something to be said for it. I mean, altered states, we've all seen them, right?
Yeah, for sure. What I think, though, is that, it leaves so much room for interpretation.
It does.
Right. So, where are you right now? I mean, if you're hypnotized, I mean, I don't know. I think that if you're not in control of what you're saying, can it be taken as truth?
Is it stream of consciousness? Are you speaking to your inner self? Like, one of the things I talk about hypnotism is putting you into that altered state where you are calm, where you're not necessarily applying judgments and filters to your thing, to your words and actions.
Right.
And when you get to that state, you're going to say some weird stuff, and maybe that weird stuff gets interpreted as well. Okay, Phil's talking about being a pirate in the 1960s. That's right. Maybe not 1960s. What was the golden age of piracy?
I don't know. 1780s, 90s.
Yeah, I saw something on Netflix recently.
18
Blackbeard
something.
had wicked syphilis. Apparently, they used to inject mercury.
Why? To kill the syphilis?
Apparently, it was the treatment for syphilis, and
it made them crazy.
Yeah. It turns out syphilis will make you crazy.
Oh, but mercury will do a better job.
So I guess it's a race, and it sounds really painful.
It sounds horrible. Well,
but this whole past life
syphilis, I don't know.
This whole past life regression thing, right?
Yeah.
This is one of those aspects of where I think this has been. I want to say it's been kind of debunked.
I don't know if there was anything ever to really debunk.
Supporters would say yes, there was something to debunk because you haven't debunked it, jerkos. But it's that idea that you've talked to people, they've told you stories, and you've tried to figure out, well, okay, can we find any linkages? And nowadays, hell, you could go off and say you're Anne Frank, which somebody did, by the way.
Oh, I remember that. Actually, now that you say that,
there's a couple. One said they were Lou Gehrig in a past life. One said they were Anne Frank.
Jesus, that's a big one in the mental institutions.
Which is funny. Again, as we talked about, Jesus isn't reincarnated. He's resurrected.
He is resurrected. Yeah.
Chances are it's not you.
I think there's just a lot of stuff. Like when people go to pass, I kind of stumbled through this, and it's happened to me actually on a personal note. Like my dad, when he was ready to go, like about a week before, he started to say some weird shit. And my old man was lucid right up to he was fine. This one night I went in to visit him because I would go up every night and visit him at the hospital. And he said to me, Wellie was here to have a visit. And I'm like, what? Who? Wellie. I'm like, Uncle Wellie. And he's like, yeah. And my Uncle Wellie had been dead at that time for probably close to 10 years. I'm like, that. I'm like, that can't, that's not possible. And because in your mind, like it's like you're thinking that he's having some sort of something
episode,
going on.
Right? Like you're like, yeah, okay, he's
but
going
then
down
he
memory
looked
lane.
at me like he knew he was sounding crazy and went, "Oh yeah." And I was like, "That's fucking weird." But nurses and stuff, they get trained on this, like especially in geriatric wings, that it's very common that people will say, you know, "Oh, I saw so and so," or I've been visited by people from, you know, the past that are no longer with us. And it did happen. Like I was like, "Oh."
Sounds more like Ghostbusters.
It's very strange, and it's very believable. Like my dad was not he was a no nonsense sort of fellow when it came to stuff like that.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, like and I remember him looking at me like, "Yeah, okay, you're not going to believe that." So and I was like, "Okay," but it's one of the things I remember being very strange. And you know, you kind of go, "Okay, well, maybe there are things we can't explain." You know, maybe there is, you know.
This is where, again, the concept of the immortal soul, the fact that something continues beyond this meat suit we're wearing.
Yeah.
Right.
And you wonder, like, is this, you know, I don't know if I really like the idea of reincarnation. I mean, it'd be nice. You don't remember anything, so you might as well die. I mean,
I like the idea of you're done, right? Like you've put your time in, you're good. Reincarnation actually kind of breaks that, first off, because you're unlikely to ever see the people you ever cared about again, because it's a big world. And second, life sucks sometimes, and congratulations, you're going back to do it again for reasons.
Maybe in a much worse place.
It could be much worse off. I wouldn't want to. Would you want to remember the Western consumer lifestyle and then come back in somewhere else where you're like
Bangladesh? Oh my God.
I'm drinking water out of a mud puddle right now, guys.
If you're lucky.
Yeah. And I'm picking
6
garbage.
of your 7 siblings have died of tuberculosis.
Dysentery. Like on the Oregon Trail.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is that when we look at these kind of, I don't know. I mean, I'm very much we die and that's sort of it.
Yeah, I admit I'm more of a something continues on. What it is, I'm not 100% certain.
I would love to believe that. I really would. I think
what gives you comfort, right? If the fact it's an end, the Stoics believe very much, Phil, that we didn't have a problem with not existing before. Why would you have a problem with not existing after?
Well, that makes total sense to me.
You came from nothing. You go back to nothing. Why would you care? Like, what's scary about that?
And it doesn't frighten me. I don't know why. I've never been frightened by it. Not to say that I want to like fucking die or anything, but I don't have a fear of it. Like I would have more of a remorse for not seeing my children and my wife and
being able to do this podcast.
Wouldn't be able to see you and do the podcast.
That's right. Somebody's got to do the editing.
You'd replace me with another ginger. I hear there's a few out there.
I wouldn't actually. I would just keep calling them Phil. It'd be like,
my name's Bert.
Yeah, your name's Phil
now.
Bert. Well, have you ever seen Beer Fest?
No, it was
If you get a chance, check Beer Fest. And one of the character called Landfill. He's a dumpster. He's a prodigious drinker, so he's doing awesome, and he winds up dying. Like he's one of their buddies. He gets, I can't remember if he dies or gets killed. Again, the plot was kind of over there, but they basically get his twin brother to fill his role, and everybody likes his twin brother better. And they just say, "Can we call you Phil?"
Oh my God.
Even his wife, even the dude's wife, "I like you so much better." They completely write poor Landfill out of the picture.
That sucks.
Yeah. Watch Beer Fest. It's got Mona from Who's the Boss is the grandma.
Is she still alive? Or is it that old?
It's not that old. I mean, it's what, 5 years, 10 years?
Oh my God, Mona was old when we would watch.
I think she just really looked it. Like Angela also looked very old and mannish too. Judith Light. She was very severe.
Light. Oh, okay.
I just remember very severe features. I was not embarrassed. I was not hurt when her and Tony never really got together.
You have a twisted mind, my friend.
You wanted Tony and her to get together?
Yes.
Sicko.
Everybody did. He was the maid. Tony Danza, everybody's favorite. I miss Tony Danza.
Tony Danza.
He looks the same. Tiny Tony Danza. Yeah. Anyway. I'm on the fence with a lot of this stuff. I don't I don't see.
But
I think it's interesting.
It's interesting,
but it doesn't mean that
there are documented cases. So does that make it true, or does that make it like these were the cases that maybe we need to?
There are thousands of cases. Mm-hmm. This isn't just
it's not just one guy from World War II and say, "Oh, no, reincarnate." And there's whole cultures that believe this is the thing, and they would say, "What do you mean? We got tons of history of this."
The thing is that now information is so available, right? That if you said you were born in the 90s or I died in the 90s and man, we can go back and we could find out everything about you. Yeah. Like there was one case I read about where this kid knew the address that he lived at and the name of his neighbors.
But that's right? The problem is I could fake that. Like, again, assuming
but perfectly. Yes. And if it was legit, I would be like, whoa, but how do you prove that?
How do you prove it? Well, you prove that the information they're saying is correct, but how do you know they didn't get the information somewhere else? So this is where I like the talent thing. I like when you see that talents line up with, hey, by the way, the kid was talking about Bobby Jones and he's an awesome golf prodigy. Maybe he's Bobby Jones reborn. Who knows?
Maybe. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. But you see this with people that
boring you, Phil?
No, I'm just fat and difficulty breathing.
Fair enough.
I'm tired. Machine. It was a long day at work, man. We still have day jobs, people out there. But thank you for watching. Obviously,
thank you for watching.
We appreciate.
Continue watching on Spotify too.
Oh yes,
takes forever to upload stuff. Oh,
I know you were saying. Yeah,
took an hour and a half to upload the Knights Templar last week's video or last 2 weeks. The last video, Knights Templar.
It was a good video.
Very good.
I enjoyed the Knights Templar. This one, it's okay. I like the idea. I like talking about it. But I don't know if there's much to learn. I don't think there's a lot to say unless you know somebody or something,
or have a personal experience, right? Because you can delve into the various religions, how, like you said, how Hinduism, how Buddhism, how Sikhism, how all the religions handle it. If you want.
Yeah.
And this is not a religion course, folks. If you were
not at all. In fact, we are not qualified to really teach anything. Macrame, maybe.
Except as cautionary tales. We are teach by example. Don't do this.
Don't do it. We've made a lot of mistakes.
But we survived.
I tell my kids, I'm telling you this because, I've done things and fucked up. That's why I'm telling you not to do that. Where my old man would just don't do that. Never get, and I would explain, I tried to explain to my kids, well, this is why I don't want you to do this. And this is how it worked out for me. And if you still want to do it, all right.
You have a free soul. Congratulations. But you were warned. And hopefully you can walk away from this. I'm going to keep you from walking off the ledge. But I might not keep you from burning your hand on the stove because you're going to have to learn that anyway.
That's right. Yeah. I pick and choose my battles, where, my kids are really good. So I'm pretty lucky that way. They're,
if they weren't, would you say?
What's
that?
We
just not hear anything talking about your kids?
What? Where? Who?
If they were bad, would you just not say anything, or would you say my kids are terrible? God,
no, I'm a pretty open guy. I would be like, these kids are bad. I totally would because and it's funny because we're just lucky. Like our kids have always been. No, that's not true. The girl, she had me worried because she was a bit of a firecracker, just little and full of piss and vinegar, and she would tell people off. Just this cute little thing, just like telling people off. Don't talk to me. Don't look at me.
And back in our day, the sharp backhand would come from the whatever authority parent figure was nearby.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, okay, that's not discouraging me from doing this behavior, but it's certainly inflicting the consequences of said behavior. So I'm going to do this.
Yeah. So when I was a kid, we had that kind of punishment, but which led me to.
It's called hands-on parenting, Phil.
Hands-on. Yeah. It led me to be like, no. We're going to have a lot more patience than, and then we take away things you like. That was
one. There are so many things to like now, aren't there? That's the nice part. Things.
So you don't want to listen. That's fine. But we will take away something you really enjoy.
Like your insulin.
The drugs that keep you alive. What?
Dialysis machine? You like the dialysis machine, don't you? I'm going to wheel it in my room and I'm going to use it.
Guess what? I'm hooking the dog up to the dialysis machine
just because.
Just to see what happens. Yeah. So, but on that note, reincarnation, a quick recap. Yeah, we die. We are sent off into some sort of cosmic soup. Soup spits us out as either a bug or a plant or a bee or another human being. And we start the cycle over again and again and again and again from the sounds of things, right, Corey? Is that about
That's the consistent, and it's not a punishment. It's just the way things are.
Just a never-ending cycle of human abuse.
Of existence, which is, how things
Some
are.
days I look at myself in the mirror and I go, what are we doing? What is this all about?
So one thing I read about this is, how everybody says, hey man, I wish I could remain young and beautiful and awesome forever. Right. Because we would we would love to say, hey, I don't want to get old and have everything hurt. Like sitting down hurts, standing up hurts, whatever. One of the theories I read was the reason why that happens, aside from a natural entropic decay of our meat suits, is that that is purposeful to prepare us for the end. So if I want you to leave, what do? I start turning off the lights. I start turning down the heat. I make
you take your pants off.
All of a sudden,
usually does it. Hands are
you're
up.
You're not staying on my couch anymore. You're like, the party's over. So that is aging in a nutshell. That whole concept of prepares us to release ourselves from this form that are not because it's decaying and breaking down, but because you know what, death doesn't look so bad now because everything hurts.
And that was my dad. Like at the end, it was like, everything. Oh, excuse me. Everything hurts. Everything was, he couldn't even eat without half choking, like it was really sad. And we all wanted him to stick around because that was our, you're a selfish human being and you want, but like he was ready and he'd tell me, he goes, I'm done.
Did you read about the Swedish suicide capsules?
No.
I always wondered how stuff like that affects the whole reincarnation cycle if you willingly kill yourself. So they're not capsules you take. What they are is 3D printed capsules that they're clear and they can set them up in idyllic places. So a nice field, maybe a strip club, whatever.
So you die in the capsule?
Well, it gets worse. Okay.
Oh, God. Do tell.
So do you know how you die in that capsule, Phil?
You suffocate?
Yes, but not in the way you think. So what they do is they turn down the oxygen and turn up the nitrogen. So apparently...
Oh, you're high as fuck.
Well, you're still respirating. You're still respirating, right? So you don't get that choking feel, but your body's not... It's like there's no oxygen here. Yeah. And it just...
It's like carbon monoxide poisoning, right?
Yes, exactly. Minus the tailpipe, the smoky smell of...
What is that?
Carbon fuels.
It's like when we run a car too long in the shop. It's like, is anyone else getting sleepy?
I'm sleepy. I want to go. Yeah, a little high. But
good to go.
And the kicker is because it's 3D printed, it's a coffin too. So you go off. You're in your little clear box. We take you. We're like, okay, well, Phil's done. Tap, tap, tap. Now, apparently it's got like panic buttons. So
if you change your mind,
you got I think 45 seconds once they start this to change your mind. So chances are you're probably gone before you say, I don't want to die this way. And then they can take it and wheel it in. And it's got the green light in Sweden to go into production. Yeah. Well, like I was saying,
yes, as you were saying,
what are we doing next week, Phil? Are you going to ask?
Of course I'm going to ask. What are we doing next week? It's got to be better than reincarnation.
It remains to be seen. What are we going to do? Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Wait, why do I know that? Ed and Lorraine were they like the killers? They were
no, they were not the killers.
God.
Ed and Lorraine Warren were the paranormal investigators. These were the ones involved in the Amityville horror.
Oh, fuck. That's why I know them.
Yeah.
It's actually a scary story. I don't know if you've ever read this shit.
Ed
and Lorraine, what was their last name?
Warren. Ed and Lorraine Warren. Because you talked about ghosts, we talked about reincarnation, and they kind of
I think that's great, actually, because Now, are we going to talk about Amityville?
I think you can't talk about Ed and Lorraine without touching on their more, because the more popular, the notable investigations is the more interesting part. Them themselves, maybe not as interesting, because it sounds, there's an awful lot of.
I've heard of them. So
yeah, you've heard of them, but there's an awful lot of they were big frauds sort of discussions going on.
Yeah, I'm sure they were. But yeah, the Amityville stuff.
Yeah,
it was,
and we'll touch on it because a future episode, similar to how we talked about New World Order, and then we eventually talked about Illuminati. Eventually, there's nothing saying we can't talk about Ed and Lorraine, and then maybe do some deep dives into some of the these cases.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much for watching the OC. I'm Phil. This is my co-host Corey, and next week we'll be talking about Ed and Lorraine, Warren.
Demonologists for hire.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, apparently they're like basically the white man's Constantine or something. I don't know.
Oh, Jesus. All right. Yeah. And on that note, take care, folks.
Toodles.